If you don't like boring news but still crave the truth, then dive into The Robert and Crew Show. From mind-bending conspiracy theories to wild weather phenomena, we've got it all. Ever wondered what's really happening in your hometown, or what secrets the global news isn't telling you? We dig deep into the core of every story, unraveling the mysteries one podcast at a time. Join Robert and the crew as we navigate this vibrant, ever-changing cyberpunk landscape, bringing you interviews with the most intriguing minds out there. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, a news junkie or a weather enthusiast, there's something here for you. So strap in, listeners, because we're about to take you on a ride through the neon-lit alleys of truth and intrigue. This is the Robert and Crew Show, where the future meets the fantastic.
Welcome back to the Robert and Crew Show. As always, I'm your host, Robert.
I'm the co-host, Crew.
And I'm Julie.
Tonight, we're going to be going over Heaven's Gate. And Heaven's Gate was a famous cult that I believe came out of... Didn't they come out of California? I'll figure that out here in a second. But they are crazy. There are so many crazy things with this case that this is going to throw quite a few of your guys' minds for a loop. Marshall Applewhite was the main leader of Heaven's Gate's cult. And they named it Heaven's Gate because they believed that at the end of the world, like towards when like the rapture were to happen, that a group of aliens, specifically I think Nordics, were going to fly over, beam them up, and take them to heaven to meet God and Jesus and everybody else. These aliens were going to do this. And Marshall Applewhite truly believed this. So Heaven's Gate was a controversial religious cult. Basically, they were founded in 1974 by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles. They're often described as a cult due to extreme practices and their tragic end. The group was believed in transforming into an immortal extraterrestrial beings by rejecting human nature, a mix of Christian millennialism, New Age ideas, and ufology. So we have Marshall Applewhite, who believes that aliens are going to come and grab his cult people, and they're going to take you to the beautiful land of heaven, where you're going to end up an immortal extraterrestrial being. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Sounds like they're a bunch of loony bins.
For sure.
So, Marshall Applewhite's life. Let's get into this a little bit. Marshall Applewhite was born in 1931. He was the son of a Presbyterian minister, and he had a background in music and acting. He met Bonnie Nettles in 1972, and together they developed group beliefs. Their group beliefs were basically claiming that Applewhite was to be Jesus's successor. Like he was supposed to become the new Jesus, I guess. Which I feels like every cult is about becoming the new Jesus. I feel like every single cult relies on that. Like that has to be a part of it. And then Applewhite, after Nettles' death in 1985, Applewhite led the group alone, eventually orchestrating a mass unaliving in 1997. And the mass unaliving is pretty freaky. In March of 1997, 39 members died in a mansion near San Diego, California. believing a spaceship following Comet Halley or Comet Hale-Bopp would take them to the next level. They ingested a potion, they wore identical clothing, and left behind videos explaining their actions. So we have videos of a lot of these people explaining why they did what they did, why they believed they were going to do it, and why it was so important to them. That's how much they believed in Marshall Applewhite's cult. How do you feel about that, Julie?
Just crazy. I mean, how can you? Well, I guess you gotta just be crazy sort of person to believe that sort of stuff.
How do you think they're able to get all of these people to follow their belief system?
Probably manipulation.
Definitely, I'd say manipulation of the religious and emotional aspect. So we're going to get a little bit into Marshall Applewhite's life. We're going to go from basically when he was younger all the way to 1997 when in his leadership role the mass unaliving happened. So Heaven's Gate emerged in the early 1970s, like I said earlier. They were basically a new religious movement that believed extraterrestrials were going to come beam them up. They officially founded in 1974 by Marshall Hef Applewhite, or Herf. That's a weird middle name. Herf. Marshall Herf Applewhite and Bonnie Lou Nettles. The group is classified as a cult due to their practices and the mass unaliving event in 1997, which shocked the entire world and drew significant media attention. It went national, obviously. 39 people, or was it 39? I believe it was 39 people unalived
Believe
themselves.
so.
Applewhite was known as DO, and Nettles was known as TL. They met in 1972. They believed that they were to witness the end times, and it was going to play out exactly like it did in the Book of Revelations. Is what they believed. Is that the Book of Revelations was going to happen from start to finish, exactly how it was written. And they used this belief to scare people and manipulate them and also attract followers with promises of transcendence to a higher plane of existence with extraterrestrials and God. The group's early gatherings happened in 1975, and they were held in California and Oregon. They drew several hundred adherents by the 1976. However, their core membership shrank to a few dozen, adopting basically a monastic lifestyle, and they stopped recruiting, so they ceased recruitment. The shift marked a period that increased isolation, with members living communally, so they all lived together in a big mansion, and they practiced extreme reunification, and that includes voluntary castration. So they cut their genitals off, and particularly the men. The men would castrate themselves as a means to reject their human sexual desires, because they believed that sex was harmful and sex was unpure, and because of that, if you had sex, you were basically you were giving yourself to the devil at that point. That was Marshall Applewhite's whole thing. He was like, if you have sex or sexual relations, you're giving yourself to the evil, to the demons. You can't do that. Do not do that.
Wow.
So he convinced a whole bunch of men to self castrate, which is absolutely insane. Um, pretty crazy, right?
Yes, for sure.
Like I could never self castrate. First off, I mean, you can get you can do that in a doctor's office now, and it's a lot. It's called a vasectomy. It works and it's reversible. So I'm not going to cut my genitals off. No, thank you. That's absolutely insane. How do you feel about that, Crew? Like being a man, how do you feel about somebody telling you in order to be a part of our group, you have to castrate yourself? I mean, obviously you join that group, but how does it make you feel?
I mean, it
Gives me
makes me feel awkward and disturbed.
for sure. I
I
mean, it
couldn't do
makes
it.
you want to. It makes you want to. It makes you want to squirm and cry just thinking about it. Being a man,
Yeah,
that
I
is,
couldn't do it.
the women didn't have to. That's so unfair. If I have to, you have to. The theological framework of the group was that Heaven's Gate theology was a unique synthesis of Christian millennialism and New Age spirituality, whatever that means, and ufology. So Marshall Applewhite was really into UFOs. Obviously, he thought that aliens would come and beam him up. They described themselves as a UFO religion. The central belief was that followers could transform and transcend into immortal extraterrestrial beings by rejecting their human nature, such as violence, sexuality, and basically like hypocrisy. Like you couldn't do something that you know that you would tell somebody else not to do. Basically, like his rules weren't that bad, but the way he went among cashing in on those rules was terrible.
I
Um,
mean, I'd consider castration a bad rule.
well, obviously, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It is that his rules were not bad rules, but the way he enforced the rules were bad. And that would be
Yeah.
self-castration. That was one of the ways he enforced the rules. Looks like we
Yeah.
have some comments. Jamie said that sounds whacked, and I don't think Crew believes it either. And he said that's creepy. Brain watching through subliminal messaging. 100%, dude.
Yeah.
For
Um,
sure.
yeah. So, like we said, they reject their human nature to ascend to the next level and become basically extraterrestrial gods and walk with God and Jesus. And ultimately, the way that they were going to get there was physical death. They had to die in order for the extraterrestrials to come get them, which why the heck would anybody believe that? I don't understand how Marshall Applewhite was able to make these people believe that, but okay. um, then they would view it as transition rather than an end. So death was the transition to being beamed up and going to heaven with the extraterrestrials. After Nettles' death, so after Bonnie's death from cancer in 1985, Applewhite's leadership evolved around the group's further. He emphasized that the human body was basically it was just a container um, or a vehicle. He really said like vehicle. So like your body was just there to transport your soul. And this belief became central to their eventual mass unaliving, that framed a graduation to a new existence. So Marshall Applewhite was like, you have to die in order to move on. In order to go to the next level, you have to die. I'm sorry. That's just what has to happen.
Mm.
And all of them drank the Kool-Aid and believed it. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
just like the Jim, what
Jim
that
Jones.
Jim
Jim
Jones
Jones, which we're going to
thing,
do an episode on Jim Jones. We're going to do an episode on Jim Jones. Don't you worry. Jim Jones is coming, baby.
and
Jim
all
Jones
those
is coming.
Kool-Aid people. Man, that was crazy.
Oh yeah, Jim
Man,
Jones is insane. That's an insane one.
for sure.
So we're going to talk about his background a little bit and how he led his group. Marshall Applewhite, like we said earlier, was born in 1931. He was the son of a Presbyterian minister, which likely influenced his early exposure to his early exposure to these religious themes, and his own religious ideas. He had a diverse background, so he came from quite a bit of mashup. He served as a soldier, and later on, he worked as a music professor at the University of St. Thomas in Houston, Texas. His career was marred by controversy because when you believe certain things, people can't take you very seriously sometimes. So there's a lot of controversy surrounding Applewhite. He was fired in the early 1970s over an alleged relationship with a male student, a detail that highlights his struggles with his sexuality, which could later on have resulted in self-castration, which Applewhite would do to himself before he made anybody else do to themselves. Applewhite mutilated his own genitals first because he had these homosexual urges that he did not want to act out on, basically, because he believed that he would go to hell or these aliens wouldn't come grab him if he was sexually involved with another male. Applewhite then went on to meeting Bonnie Nettles in 1972, who was very pivotal to his life. Nettles was a nurse and the mother of 4. She had extreme interest in UFOs and astrology. She shared his spiritual inclinations. Together, they would study, and they'd study a range of texts. They would study biblical prophecy. They would study theosophy, and science fiction works by multiple different science fiction authors. The most notable being Robert A. Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke. Applewhite came to believe that he was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, identifying him as Christ, present representative of Christ, inhabited by the same alien spirit. Nettles was seen as God the Father, reinforcing their dual leadership until death. So basically, he called himself Jesus, and he called his wife the Lord. How
Oh my
insane!
goodness.
How insane! Oh my goodness!
That is
Oh my
insane.
goodness is right. then, then after 1985, Applewhite's leadership became more authoritarian. So, with other members required to sever all contact with their families and friends, they were not allowed to talk to new people. They had to adopt an asexual experience, thus self castration, and follow strict communal living rules. His personal commitment to the group ideals was evident in his voluntary castration, a practice that was mirrored by several male members, reflecting their rejection of human sexuality. He practiced, the Heaven's Gate members practiced and lived a highly disciplined monastic lifestyle. They're often compared to like the religious orders. They divested themselves of possessions. They lived communally with everybody and supported themselves through website development under the name Higher Source, leveraging the internet as a tool for them for both income and recruitment in the 1990s. This made them one of the very first well-known American cults to utilize the internet with their other official website, heavensgate.com, which, crazy enough, is still being is still being ran. It's still being ran by a group of people who are called Telha, which is Telha, Telha, and it stands for something extraterrestrial life. But basically, it's what Marshall Applewhite believed you would become. You would become an extraterrestrial, and you would be on a higher plane with God. So that's what it stands for, basically.
Wow. So
But
do they still have a following?
yes, they do. And the group's practices include extreme self reunification, such as castration, and a focus on portraying the transition to the next level. Members wore identical clothing, often black shirts or white shirts and sweatpants, and adopted uniform haircuts. They wore the same exact Nikes, and their practices were a part of their belief in transcending individuality and human attachments. Um, Jamie says, "How are they basing their facts on this topic? It honestly sounds like a cult, just like they say about Jehovah's Witnesses." Robert, what is your thoughts, and crew, what is your stance on this? I would say, well, first off, Heaven's Gate is a cult. It doesn't sound like a cult. It is a cult, and I really don't know what to say about Jehovah's Witnesses because I don't know much about them. Um, but
Jehovah's
like
Witnesses are a lot worse than Mormons.
well, like I said earlier, is I feel like all religion can come. Well, I actually said this in the last episode, and the episode before this one. Which, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a good episode. But anyways, like I said in that episode, I feel like all religion comes from a based cult at one point or another, where somebody claimed to speak to God, talk to God, see God, or do whatever, and they gained an entire following from it. So I feel like quite a bit of religion started that way. Um, Nobody really knows what the first religion is. It's between Judaism and Christianity, and then even before then, you had the ancient Sumerians who believed in completely different things, and obviously the Egyptians who believed in a multitude of gods, such as the Greeks also believed in a multitude of gods, and the Romans believed in a multitude of gods. So where it's religion becomes very curious to me in the aspect of gaining traction or having a following, because I feel like you have to be culty. I'm sure there's Christian cults out there. Oh, like Marshall Applewhite's cult is he uh he takes from the Christian religion. So basically he uses Christianity to benefit himself, which is obviously against the word of God. You're not supposed to use Christianity or any religion to benefit yourself. It's only to benefit the community and benefit the Lord. It is
Yeah.
not to benefit you at all. That's not what it is for. Prayer is to uplift prayer is to uplift your family, friends, and loved ones. You can pray for yourself, but God even stated multiple times that when you pray for yourself, you have to pray true. You can't like ask for a Ferrari. That's not how it works.
True.
But
Yeah.
as for
True,
my
true.
So
stance on that whole situation, Jamie, I am going to say they're a bunch of loony bins. They're stupid for even considering castration. They're stupid for even thinking they're going to be taken to heaven.
By extraterrestrials, nonetheless.
That
Yeah. I mean,
and
because their body was still there on the beds where they died.
yep,
They weren't
Yep.
beamed up by UFOs like they thought they were going to be.
Nope.
and they were all told lies and being forced to do things that that were inhumane. So
Quite honestly, crew, I think that Marshall Applewhite had them believing certain things because they themselves were seeking, where can I find God? Where can I find my purpose? So I don't
right,
think Applewhite really lied to them. He didn't have to. He told them his beliefs, which he stated. He didn't lie to them. He didn't tell them lies. He told them what he believed, and they chose to believe it.
well, in a way, even though he didn't, even though he told them what he believed, he technically was lying to them because at the same time,
Not if he
there was
truly
nothing
believes
coming
it.
for them.
Right, but not if he truly believes it. If he truly believes it, it's not a lie. That's all I'm getting at. Is it's like
Right,
if you truly like take for instance like Jews, Christians, and Muslims. If a group of agnostics or atheists come out and go, you guys are stupid because you believe in God. Ha 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 ha. You've been lied to because you read a book that a man wrote. Ha 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 ha. Like that doesn't mean they've been lied to. They chose to believe what the Bible says. Thus is agnostics and atheists choose not to believe in God. You know what I mean?
right.
So it would be very unfair for an agnostic or an atheist to come up to a Christian church and laugh at everybody and say God's not real, because just like the Christians, you have no idea what's real or what's not real, which is why you struggle so much. Whereas Christians and Jews and Muslims can read a book and pray and they feel better. I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think that people really latch on to religion.
I mean, you have
Um,
a good point there. People
Yeah,
do latch
Jamie
on to
says,
religion.
"Amen, Robert, and preach the truth, crew. Well said, guys. Well said. Thank you for putting the truth out there, Robert and crew. Crew, I like the way you think." And Robert, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you. But anyways, let's get we're gonna get back to this Marshall Applewhite real quick. In 1997, as we all know, Applewhite gave his followers a potion. They drank it, and a mass unaliving occurred. Um, the mass unaliving occurred on March 26th, 1997. Remains the most infamous event associated with Heaven's Gate. It occurred in a mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, California. It involved 39 members, including Applewhite, aged 28 to 72, 21 women, and 18 men. The event was triggered by the appearance of comet Hale-Bopp, which the group believed was accompanied by a mothership ready to transport them to the next level. This belief was fueled by rumors and their interpretation of celestial events and signs of their impending ascension. The unalivings were carried out in 3 waves over 3 days, with members ingesting lethal mixtures of phenobarbital and alcohol. Some using plastic bags for asphyxiation that they tied over their heads. They were found dressed identically, wearing Nike Ducati sneakers and carrying $5 bills and 3 quarters, possibly for symbolic or practical reasons. Before the unalivings, the group updated their website with a message stating, "Hale-Bopp, brings us closer to Heaven's Gate. Our 22 years of classroom here on planet Earth is finally coming to a conclusion. Graduation is taking place. From the human evolutionary level, we are happy and prepared to leave this world and go with TI's crew, Heaven's Gate religious group. So that was what they left on their website the day they decided to unalive themselves. And if you guys heard me, the unalivings took place over 3 days. That means there were people living in that house while there were dead people sleeping right next to them.
Wow.
I don't that gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Me
That gives me
too.
the
Me, that
heebie-jeebies.
too.
Like, you willingly stayed in a house, like did Applewhite go first? Because if Applewhite went first, I would have just left the room. I'm not doing this, and I would have just left. That's insane. Then the aftermath of the significant the aftermath saw significant media coverage, national news coverage. Well, when you kill 39 people with a potion that was meant to send them off to with extraterrestrials after Hale-Bopp passes by. I can't take this seriously. Like, I don't think I'd ever buy into that bullshit. I don't think I could. I don't think I could ever buy into any of that. Like Christianity and Judaism sounds way better than that.
Yeah,
I don't want to
for
have to kill
sure.
myself. That just goes to show you, Robert, how weak-minded they were, for sure.
Yeah.
The house, so the mansion that they all unalived themselves in, sold for $668,000 in 1999. It was assessed value was 1.4 million and eventually was raised, with the address changed to 1823 9 and the street renamed Paseo Victoria. The event also inspired copycat unalivings, including by former members like Wayne Cook, that's a funny last name,
Yeah, it
who
is.
died May
That is
6th,
funny.
1997, and James Perky Jr., who died May 11th, 1997, highlighting the lasting impact of the group's ideology. So those two took their own lives at their houses, apparently thinking they were going to go up with the Heaven's Gate people. Well, regardless, guys, you missed they already unalived themselves. The ship's gone. So I feel like you killed yourselves for nothing. If Applewhite was correct, then the ship already came. Why'd you unalive yourself after?
Mhm.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
So we do have some survivors, by the way. We have some survivors who managed to escape the cult, and we're going to talk about them real quick. One notable survivor was Rio D'Angelo. He was a member for 3 years before leaving and later reflected on the experience in interviews, such with ABC News in 1997 and in 2022. His Gate survivor reflects on the cult's mass unaliving 25 years ago. He described the group's strict rules, including severing family ties and adopting an asexual lifestyle. He noted feeling the presence of Applewhite and Nettles even after leaving. He felt like he was being watched. D'Angelo now lives in a retired art director. Lives as a retired art director, reunited with his mother. He spends time with his grandchildren, trying to lead a normal life. The group's legacy is studied in the context of new religious movements and cult dynamics, with scholars like Benjamin Zeller analyzing their beliefs as a mashup of evangelical Christianity and New Age practices and UFO fascination. Um, Heaven's Gate, UFOs, unaliving, Marshall White, that little snippet that I got came directly from the Britannica encyclopedia. But basically, it states that this Benjamin Zeller guy did a whole. He analyzed the entire cult, trying to figure out what they were about, and he basically tied it all into they were evangelical Christians with New Age practices who believed that they were going to be beamed up by UFOs. So Marshall Applewhite's religion was Christian in nature. So, like I said before, he was more of a Christian than he was his own religion. He was just blasphemous because he called himself Jesus. Then we have the cultural impact. So how this affected the culture. Heaven's Gate is often compared to apocalyptic and UFO focused groups. So they're known worldwide, as UFO focused groups, such as the Worldwide Church of God, with parallels drawn to individuals like Glenn Washington, who Glenn Washington is a podcast host for the Heaven's Gate podcast. The cult story hits close to home for this person, I guess, and he does the podcast on NPR, so National Public Radio. The group's use of internet for recruitment and their distinctive attire, including Nike sneakers, have made them a cultural touchstone for discussions, cults, in the digital age. I wonder how Nike feels about the cult using using their shoes, their brand. The group Mass Unalived also raised questions about their mental health, susceptibility to charismatic leadership, and resources to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It was highlighted in media coverage as a response to such tragedies. So basically, the suicide hotline became really big, or the unaliving hotline became really big after Heaven's Gate cult happened. They were definitely telling people, please don't kill yourselves. Call us and get mental help, please. You need it. Sorry, that's not funny, but it just makes me laugh that this group literally changed the culture around the world because of what they did. The group's names have been called basically Human Individual Metamorphosis, or HIM was one of the groups. Bo Peep was the other group, and then Total Overcomers Anonymous was the other group. So there were 3 sects of Marshall Applewhite's group. Their beliefs, as we went over before, was Christian millennialism and New Age ufology, and basically they were called a UFO religion. They believed they were going to transform into immortal extraterrestrials and ascend to the next level. They had a monastic communal living, extreme self reunification, so aka castration. In 1985, cancer hit Applewhite, but he continued his leadership. In 1994, the new proselytization divested possessions and pilgrimage to California. So the cult picked up and went to California. They moved from Oregon and went to California. In 1996, supported by the web development under Higher Source. And then March 26th of 1997, 39 members unalived themselves in Santa Fe, California. And then basically we have the trigger was the rumor of the spaceship following comet Hale-Bopp close to Earth's spring equinox in 1997. They created their own website. They made videos explaining reasons, and they were identical. They wore identical clothing, such as the Nike Decades. Um, the house did end up selling for $668,000, even though there was unalivings that occurred in the house. There were multiple copycat uh, unalivings that were reported, and the website has been maintained by the Tele Foundation since 1997. They are accepting new members. Mark and Sarah King are original members of the Heaven's Gate cult, and they say that they were the ones who were left behind to introduce the new age Heaven's Gates cult into the extraterrestrial space with Jesus. So basically, this telegroup, this Mark and Sarah King, either A, they believe that they're going to be able to pull this off again, or B, they believe that they deserve to still have their religion be evolved around Heaven's Gate, whether or not they were purportedly ex-members of Heaven's Gate's cult, or they were the ones who were left behind, which is as they claim. Which, I mean, they have control of the website, so I mean, how else do you get control of the website without being a big part of the group? Um, Basically, to conclude, Marshall Applewhite and Heaven's Gate and Marshall Applewhite's life represent the complex. They represent a complex intersection of spirituality, technology, and tragedy. The group's beliefs, practices, and ultimately their mass unaliving highlighted the dangers of charismatic leadership and apocalyptic ideologies, while also offering insights into the dynamics of a new religious movement. This 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 grounded in historical records and survivor accounts. It aims to provide comprehensive resources for understanding the significant cultural and religious phenomena. Now, that finishes up basically the background of Heaven's Gates cult and Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles. And I just want to say that this makes me very sad too at points that 39 people, 18 men and 21 women, was that what was said? Yeah, I believe it was 18 men and 21 women. 18 men willingly self-castrated and then sent themselves off to heaven with Marshall Applewhite because they felt that they couldn't believe in something, or that they couldn't have a good life without being a follower, and that saddens me. And it comes down to like mental health issues. And I'm not sponsored by any group or anything like that, but I will give a shout out to this place BetterHelp, which is online. It's an online therapy place. If you're thinking of unaliving yourself, you need to call the suicide hotline or the suicide prevention hotline. You also need to seek out therapy. And yes, some people don't enjoy therapy, but it is really needed. And with subjects like this, I like to really touch on that therapy is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. You don't want to wind up believing something just because you feel like you have nothing else in this world, which I feel like a lot of these people probably did. What's your take on that, Julie?
Oh, I definitely encourage people to seek help because there's just way too many stories of things could have been different if you've gone and sought help. So if you need help, go get it. I know it's hard to seek help sometimes because we all got that stubborn streak, but if you need help, go seek it.
Shaitan fell asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys hear that snoring on stream? That's hilarious. So in the first season of the podcast, I fell asleep. And I would stayed on live until like 6 o'clock in the morning. And like I think that's absolutely hilarious. Like anybody that clicked on that stream saw me sleeping. That's so funny. But anyways, we're gonna say bye to Crew because Crew's passed out. So, oh, he's back now,
I've been
bro. You was
back.
snoring. You was snoring. You were snoring. Me and Julie
Yes.
both heard it.
Yeah, I heard it.
You were out. You were out. But anyways, okay, we got Crew back. I was just telling him the story. A Crew passed out. I could see it right from the start. I know, right? That's what Jamie said. But I was telling them about how I fell asleep during the first season of our podcast, and I stayed all the way on until 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yep, and I never let you live that
Cover
down
TV
either
stream.
till to this day.
Levi and Jamie both heard you snoring. They're ratting you out right now. But
I warned you I was tired.
yeah, so going back to you real quick, Julie, because you didn't get to finish. But what were you saying?
I was saying, we all have our own stubborn streak where we think we don't need help, but sometimes we do. So if you need help in any situations, go seek help because I've had family members a long time ago that unalived. So if you need help, if for any reason at all, always seek somebody. There's always somebody out there available to talk.
Either talk to your family, talk to a friend, or find a therapist, find somebody to talk to. Okay, so guys, we are now going to get in our videos for tonight. So I will tell you that Marshall Applewhite is very creepy, and now you guys are going to get to see him and witness who he was firsthand.
If you don't believe in us, we won't die, though we may appear dead to you. If you do believe in us, and the ones we have worked so hard to represent, our older members, T and Do, who are from the next level, then you can be sure the next level is watching. Because by your belief, you allow them a chance to save the part of you that may become a child in our Father's house too, at a later time, if that is where you want to be. Thank you for listening, and good luck.
So I walk up into the living area, the living room, and that's when I start to notice the mattresses with people lying on them with the purple shroud. And of course I knew from the odor what was happening.
So that wasn't Applewhite, but that was a group of the people that were with Applewhite and with the group that were talking about what they were going to do. And basically they said, yes, it's going to look like we're unalived and that we did this to ourselves. But if you believe in our cause, then you'll be able to tell that our souls have gone where they're supposed to be. So, and you can really tell that those people believed that, which, oh my goodness, like how mentally ill do you have to be?
Right.
Must have been very mentally ill.
Yeah, it's sad. Like I said, like it actually hurts my heart. Like I feel for these people because I feel like Marshall Applewhite not only took advantage of them, but pushed his false prophetic beliefs on them and made them feel even worse about themselves
Yeah,
for
totally
having
agree.
urges. Yeah, for having urges or having vices or wanting. I mean, according to Applewhite, you're not even supposed to have children because that involves having sex. Therefore, you're a terrible human being if you do that. It's so crazy to me.
It is. I mean, because I believe that we were brought on here to multiply. I mean, in
Exactly,
some
Levi.
way,
Levi
you
said
know.
extremely mentally ill if they did that. You are 100% right, Levi.
Thank you, Jen. I was literally about to make a video on this. I went down the Reddit rabbit hole and found a lot of information. So the website more so is the same as it was in 1997 when the incident happened. However, if you try to contact them, you do get a reply, and it's usually within an hour. So this person right here, Cthulhu 2016, I sent them a message back in 2017 and they got a reply within an hour. He thought they were all dead. Who's running the website? It said some of us were chosen to stay behind and continue with the affairs of the church until the next ascension. So this psychopath really wants to go round 2 on this, and he left people behind to commit this. How a member of the kingdom of heaven might appear. These people really thought they were going to be aliens. You zoom into the website header, check this out. T and Doe, the UFO 2. That's what they refer to as Applewhite and Nettles, the 2 founders of this whole movement. The T and Doe are claiming they had the keys to heaven, just like Jesus and his father 2,000 years ago. These people literally think they are gods. I don't know if you guys watched my last video on this, but this guy barely even blinks. And if you watch the testimonials from his students, they all look very scared, and they're kind of repeating the exact same thing he's saying in all his other videos. So honestly, it seems very forced. Let me know what you guys think about this cult in the comment section below, and as always, these videos are for informational purposes only.
Yeah, it does. It seems extremely forced.
Very.
Now,
I mean, I felt uncomfortable just watching those videos.
Right? Now you guys get to meet Marshall Applewhite. This is Marshall Applewhite.
Planet Earth about to be recycled. Your only chance to evacuate is to leave with us.
He's a loony.
Themselves intelligent beings that say, well, that's absurd. What's all this doomsday stuff? What's all this prophetic stuff? You know, intelligent human beings should realize that everything has their cycle. They have their season. They have their beginning. They have their end. They have cycles. We're not saying that planet Earth is coming to an end. We're saying that planet Earth is about to be refurbished, spaded under, and have another chance to serve as a garden for another human civilization.
Yeah, he's a loony.
Yeah, so
Reminds me of a
Marshall Applewhite.
he reminds me of one of those sci-fi people that come on and try to talk, but it just sounds crazy.
Which the funny thing about that was he was very into sci-fi, and him and his wife studied sci-fi books as a part of their religion.
That's probably where it's coming from.
Probably.
Welcome to Heaven's Gate.
It's a place where few cameras have been. Behind the front door of the Rancho Santa Fe mansion, where 39 cult members took their own lives. Real estate and environmental consultant Randall Bell gave us the tour.
This is the main living room. This was the main gathering place of the people that lived here.
At first glance, it just looks like an empty 9,200 square foot house. Then you see remnants of what happened here.
And all the marble.
That literally looked like human decay still on the floor.
Yeah.
It did.
Ew. Did nobody clean that up?
And sitting in front of me here are 2 students, June and Sawyer, and they're going to play your part in voicing for you questions that might enter your head. They may not necessarily be questions that would enter their heads because they've been students for a long time. But they will try to help me fill the gaps and not have too big of holes in the subject matter that we're going to try to cover for you.
God, he's such a
That
creepy man.
he is. And that those hairstyles remind me of something you'd see on an alien.
And he doesn't like he blinks, but when he gets really into what he's talking about, he barely blinks at all. And it's just like, oh my God, what is that about?
I know. It's just
And his smile is just
evil.
disturbing.
Very, very.
And Levi says nowadays, who would even want to buy that place to live in? Because I know I definitely wouldn't. I wouldn't want to either. But
Yeah, me
there's
either.
definitely people out there. There are definitely people out there that are occult or cult collectors, and those are the people that are going to buy those houses.
Yeah.
Apparently 39 people, Jamie. That's who would want to follow that creep to hell. Apparently 39 people.
I accidentally landed some final footage from Heaven's Gate cult, which you don't know what that is. Look, Google it up. But this was their leader. What a dude. Jesus Christ. This is not graphic footage. It's like just them talking about like the whole thing that is Heaven's Gate. This one is Doe's final exit, and this one is students of Heaven's Gate expressing their thoughts before exit. So I guess like an exit interview before the last, thing that happened. So very sad. But these are bootlegs. You can see right here, they both say bootleg. That low budget bootleg, I guess someone recorded or something. The same stuff is probably on YouTube if I'd have to guess, but if you're interested in cult history, here's some bootlegs of that. I do love collecting weird things. This one was just like an accident that they had, and I was like, let's see. And then I gotta look at this guy. So this is gonna go face down, so I don't have to look at him again.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah, Levi. Which of the people would literally buy that mansion are straight up idiots then? Yeah, for sure. And they want to be haunted. And then Jamie said, yeah, 39 weak-minded individuals that can't think for themselves. 100%, man. They could not think for themselves. They didn't know how to think for themselves.
First rule about Heaven's Gate is you don't talk about Heaven's Gate.
Sorry, Julie.
Sorry.
What'd you say?
I said they were brainwashed, so they couldn't really think for themselves.
100%. If you're being fed this religious crap, followed by how you are a worthless shill of a human being, and you believe all of that, yeah, you've been brainwashed, and you're probably mentally ill.
First rule about Heaven's Gate is you don't talk about Heaven's Gate. But they had no idea what was to come. Nay. Marshall Applewhite. Now, Marshall, he was born in Texas in 1931. His father was said to be a minister, and he combined aliens into Christian theology. Marshall, he served in the United States Army. He then went on to finish school at Austin College, and he also taught music at the University of Alabama. So after teaching there for a little bit, he actually ended up returning to Houston, Texas, and that is where he also would teach music. Now, it's alleged that he was fired due to having a relationship with one of his male students. Now, Marshall's dad would pass away in early 1970s, and this sent Marshall into like a really deep depression. It was said at some point Marshall ended up staying at a psychiatric hospital for a bit of time.
Yeah, they probably should have kept him in that psychiatric hospital. They probably should have
Yeah,
a little bit more time in that psychiatric hospital. Who let that man out?
Yeah.
Levi is so gross. Yeah, dude, I know. Marshall Applewhite, man. Marshall Applewhite. So going back to like high school, That was the one like cult that always like I wanted to know everything about was Heaven's Gate because everybody talked about David Koresh, okay? Everybody talked about Waco, Texas. Absolutely everybody talked about Jim Jones. Absolutely everybody talked about Manson and the family. But people wanted to sweep they wanted to sweep Applewhite underneath the rug. They didn't want to talk about Marshall Applewhite. And I found that so crazy that he had such a sadistic effect on society that people literally wanted to forget he even existed. That is how sick and disgusting his cult and group of people were. What are your thoughts on what you've seen so far, crew?
Honestly, hearing about the fact that he wanted the men to castrate themselves, and then the fact that he looks like a fucking creep, acts like a fucking creep, is disturbing as fuck. And then he says, "Oh, we're all gonna take this Kool-Aid and off ourselves."
And it was obviously some kind of antidepressant or it was like some like heavily dosed antidepressant because it was profenifol or something. But oh, like profenol? Is it
I don't know.
profenol maybe? Either way, some antidepressant along with alcohol, and they mixed that, and that was what they drank. So the profenol is probably the reason they all died. I don't here. Let me ask Grok real quick what profenol or whatever that is. What is the name of the drug that Heaven's Gate cult mixed in with the potion alcohol mix that they had that officially unalived them?
They used phenobarbital mixed with alcohol in their lethal concoction.
And what are those?
So phenobarbital is a barbiturate, a type of sedative drug used for anesthesia and treating seizures. But in doses, it can be fatal.
So in Heaven's Gate's cult, why was Marshall Applewhite so infatuated with UFOs? Did he have an experience when he was younger that he believed that aliens came in and visited him, or did he believe that he saw UFOs, or was he just really intrigued with UFOs?
There's no clear evidence he had a specific alien encounter or saw UFOs himself, but he seemed to develop an interest in UFOs through a spiritual journey with Bonnie Nettles. He combined Christian and New Age ideas, believing extraterrestrials were part of a higher evolutionary level they needed to reach.
If you had to assess the situation between Bonnie Nettles and Marshall Applewhite, would you say it was two very mentally ill people that were basically latching off of each other's energy to form one sick, disgusting fantasy?
It's hard to diagnose without direct evidence, but it seems they both had intense spiritual beliefs that fed off each other, creating a shared delusion. Their ideas escalated over time, mixing religion and sci-fi, which ultimately led to tragic outcomes.
So you do realize that you said exactly what I said, you just said it better?
Yeah, I guess I did rephrase it a bit to keep it clear. What's on your mind about it?
So, with Bonnie Nettles, how did Marshall Applewhite meet her, and why did he consider her the Lord?
Marshall met Bonnie in 1972 when she was a nurse treating him for a heart condition. He came to see her as a divine figure, believing she was God's father, based on their shared spiritual insights and interpretations of religious texts.
So he truthfully believed that God resided inside of Bonnie and that everything that Bonnie told him was the word of God.
Yes, he seemed to genuinely believe that, seeing her as the direct conduit for divine messages, which shaped their teachings and the group's beliefs.
That is freaking insane.
That is.
Yeah, it really is wild to think about how deeply they bought into those ideas. What else are you curious about?
So Marshall Applewhite, how do you think he managed to manipulate 39 people into unaliving themselves?
He used a mix of charismatic leadership, isolation from the outside world, and intense indoctrination, convincing them that mass suicide was their path to a higher existence with aliens. His control was built over years, reinforced by shared beliefs and a closed community.
So when they were communally living together, did they castrate themselves because of their sexual views on the world, and they believed that sex was an ultimate sin?
Yes, they castrated themselves because they believed human sexuality was a barrier to reaching the next level, viewing it as a sin and a distraction from their spiritual goals.
So what did Marshall believe about children?
There's not much specific info, but he likely saw children as part of the human world they needed to reject, focusing instead on transcending to a higher level without human attachment.
You realize how flawed that is, because Marshall himself at one point was a child.
True, that his beliefs were more about rejecting human nature altogether, including his own past, to achieve what he thought was a higher state. It's a twisted logic for sure.
Is there anything about Marshall's family and possibly abuse that took place?
There's no direct evidence from reliable sources that Marshall Applewhite faced abuse in his family, but suggest his father, a Presbyterian minister, domineering, which might have influenced him. Posts on X mention family abuse in general terms, but they're inconclusive and not specific to him.
So if there was abuse, you're saying the push of religion itself onto Applewhite at such a young age, because his father was a priest or pastor, would eventually make Applewhite basically so obsessed with his occult religion.
That the strict religious upbringing from his father, a Presbyterian minister, created a foundation for Applewhite's later obsession, as it might have instilled a deep need to either rebel against or reinterpret religious authority in his own way. That intensity could have fueled his creation of Heaven's Gate.
I think Marshall Applewhite just needed a lot of therapy, and I think his father should have loved and hugged him more. How about you? What do you feel about it?
Yeah, it sounds like he could have really benefited from some professional help and a more supportive upbringing. His father's strict approach might have left some deep emotional wounds that therapy could have addressed, potentially changing his path.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. Thanks, Grout.
Anytime. Glad we're on the same wavelength. What's next?
That'll be it for now. Thank you.
Sure. Take care. If you need more later, I'm here.
Wow.
That was good. That was interesting.
Yep.
So, no abuse within the family besides the extreme religious from father to son. Basically, his dad was just extremely religious to the point of where it corrupted his child at a young age, because it was probably all Marshall saw was just the religious side of his family. And it set father was very domineering, which meant Marshall, you're going to follow what I say. You're going to go to church. You're going to do all of this because it's the right thing to do. And he probably did that all the way from a very, very, like, since he was born. Marshall was probably born up in the church, basically.
Well, we
So
also got to remember around that time period, very religious, nutty parents were very strict, very traditional, and it was their way or the highway.
And
right,
it's
but
still like that today.
yeah, it very really is, for sure. I struggled with it with my own father.
Anyway, my
Levi said,
stepfather.
so Levi says, I honestly agree that he should have had therapy, but how would that turn you against actual religion? So I'm going to explain it to you right now, Levi, because it happened to me. When I was very young, probably about 7 or 8, maybe 10, maybe even younger, maybe like 6. I was put into what they're called Hebrew school, and you take the Jewish kids and you put them into Hebrew school, and every Sunday, every Wednesday, sometimes on Thursday, and that was it. We had to go to synagogue and learn. And basically, my dad forced me in this at a very young age. I was forced to go to Hebrew school. I was forced to learn Hebrew. I was forced to have a bar mitzvah. Now, I there were parts of growing up Jewish that I really enjoyed, and then there were parts that I feel like, because my dad pushed it so hard, which I'm sorry, Dad, if you ever listen to this, I love you. I love you so much, but you pushed me way too hard as a child towards religion that I ended up, after my bar mitzvah and really like after moving out of the house, I completely pushed away religion entirely. I was like, it's stupid, it's not real, it's a false blanket that people sleep on and sit on, and it's bullshit, and that's all it's there for, is to make people feel better about themselves. Sorry, God. But no, like, for real, like, that's what happens is when somebody pushes religion on you, you end up hating it. You don't like it. You have to choose that religion. If your family puts you into a church at a young age and they let you decide, like, they might put you into, like, I don't know if you guys have Christian school or not, Bible school for like young kids or whatnot, but
Yeah.
if you do, it's basically the same thing that I went through, just we did the Torah, and we were there quite a few nights. And Mormons do something similar, where some Mormons go to church every single day. So I believe personally that when you push religion onto specifically a child, and you do it so hardcore like that, either A, you're going to have a religious fanatic that is going to be born from it, which that's traumatization within itself. You don't want your child to become a religious fanatic, because then they'll question absolutely everything they do in life, down to how they tie their shoes, and if God wants them to tie their shoes that way. And that's absolutely insane. I've met some people like that. It's crazy. Where absolutely everything you do, they go, wait a minute, did you think about God, about what God would think about that? And you're like, dude, I'm going to go grab pizza. Like, calm down. So there's a definite difference between religious freedom and growing up in the church, and having religion pushed on you to the point of where you don't have a choice. And I feel like that's what happened with Marshall. He didn't have a choice, but all he knew was the church, so he evolved differently. He became a fanatic, a religious fanatic. And he made up his own religion based on ufology and UFOs, if you can believe that. which is already a crazy concept to begin with, especially back
Yeah.
then. For him to believe in aliens back then and truly preach that aliens were going to come grab them, of course, everybody thought they were crazy. Oh, Levi, you're welcome. Levi said, yeah, I get that. I didn't really understand it at first. Thanks for telling me because now it makes sense to me. Yeah, dude, you're completely welcome. Like I literally went through it. And Dad, like I said, if you're listening to this, I don't hate you. I love you. I love that I had the experience. I didn't like how the experience came about. That's all I can say. I think I've come to grow here in the last couple of months that I think there's definitely a creator. I think that these other gods are angels and demons. I think that the entity that I pray to, because it's not the entity that y'all pray to. Y'all probably I acknowledge God and Jesus, but I also acknowledge these other entities. And the main one for me is Anubis. And the reason I pray to Anubis, and the reason that which by the way, I don't feel like I have to defend this at all. I don't care if somebody hates it, tells me I'm going to hell. I've had so many people tell me that. And I'm like, okay, whatever you say. If that's what you believe, then that's what you believe, and that's fine. I'm gonna believe what I believe, and as long as I don't hurt myself or hurt anybody else, I think I'm going to go to the good place. And I truly think you can manifest that. I think you can believe in whatever you want to believe in, and as long as you're a good person, you're going to go to the good place. I honestly don't even think there's a hell, and the reason I don't think there's a hell is because God didn't put Satan or Lucifer in charge of hell. He put Satan or Lucifer in charge of earth. So if people want to talk, and I know there's biblical interpretations, but Lucifer was locked on earth, in the middle of earth. He was not locked in hell. So earth, in my opinion, is God's version of you can be stuck on earth forever, and that could mean in all reality that you die and you just don't go anywhere, or if you go somewhere, you're gonna live a repeat of all the negative things that ever happened to you, or something like that. Your mind is going to manifest your own hell. You know what I mean? That's what I truly believe. I believe that the human psyche is so fucking smart that when you die, your brain is still working for the last 10 minutes. Like after you're already dead, after your heartbeat has stopped and everything is over, your brain is still functioning for 10 minutes. I wonder what's happening in that 10 minutes. Because I'll tell you what's happening. I think what's happening. I think extremely religious people, because it's been noted on a couple different cases, their brains lasted longer. They were living an experience, which all of us in here know that when you die, supposedly you see a white light. Some people meet Jesus. Some people actually talk to God or meet somebody who they can't see, but they equivocate it to God, or they relive all their entire life up until the very end where Jesus grabs their hand, or somebody who they can't see pulls them out of the last situation they're in, and either tells them A, sorry man, you got to come with me now and this is where we're going, or B, it's not your time yet. And when the whole it's not your time yet usually happens, you usually run into a family member. A family member is at the gate waiting for you, and they look at you and they go, hey, nice to see you, I love you, I can't wait till you're here, it's not your time, wake up. And then they wake up, and that's happened to heart attack survivors. That's happened to people that have wound up comas. That's happened to overdose victims. That's happened to car accident victims. It has happened to any accident that can cause a near-death experience. It has happened to somebody that's been in that situation. So if that's happening to absolutely everybody, then I think that's exactly what's happening during that 10 minutes that your brain's still working after your whole body's dead. That's what's happening. So I also do believe that we have souls. And I believe that we've captured them on footage and film. And the one thing that I like about science, and this is kind of morbid, so I'm sorry, but the one thing I kind of do like about science is that they're not afraid to basically dissect the human body and pull us apart and figure out how we work. And science can tell you basically now how long you're going to live, how what you can change in your body or whatnot to make yourself work better, whether that be your cells or your blood or whatever else, or they can tell you, you know, you've got cancer, we've caught it early, we can fix this. And I kind of wonder back in the day when Jesus was walking around and they didn't have doctors with radiology machines and cancer therapies and all that. How did those people go through that? Like the religious pool, you know what I mean? Like it goes all the way back to Marshall Applewhite. Is he made these people believe in something and they felt cured. So he started calling himself Jesus. He started truthfully believing he was the reincarnation of Jesus. That's what makes him so creepy. Is how can you believe that when you grew up the way you did?
Right.
It's an interesting one. It's very interesting to me because I don't understand how people fall. I don't understand how people fall into the trap of cults and of cultic religion. I understand how people choose religions or like pick or want to be included into a religion because that's really what it is at the end of the day. It's community. They want to be involved. They want to feel important. They want to feel like they're benefiting the world. And when Christians and Jews and Muslims and all these people get together and they pray, they all feel like they're doing something holy. They feel like they're doing something good for God. They feel like they're doing something good for themselves. So I feel like prayer is a really big thing. And I feel like these people fall into these. I just don't understand it. It's like, did Marshall Applewhite hold prayer vigils and have candlelit nights where they all prayed together? Is that how he brainwashed them? Like how do you as a person like fall into that trap? I just don't understand it.
I don't either. I mean, that UFO stuff, I mean, and
Well, that's the
science.
main thing that should give it away. That's the main thing that should have given it away, for all of those people. But they wanted to feel special. That's the only thing I can equate it to, is that they wanted to be
Yeah.
special. And there's a lot of better ways. There's a lot better ways to be special in the world. There's a lot better special. There's a lot better ways. There's a lot of better ways. I don't know if I'm saying that right. There's a lot of better ways. Yeah, there's a lot of better ways to do that. That just sounds weird when you say that way. But crew, what are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, what would you do? Like not what would you do, but how do you think and feel about how these people like fall into these traps? Like how somebody can rely on cult following and
Okay.
being a part of a group.
So it's like this. All right. Cult leaders talk a big game, right?
Yeah.
So they make all these empty promises, say this is what I'm bringing to the table, this is what's going to happen, This is what I expect. You guys will get this. You guys will get that. Blah, 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 blah. But it always ends up the same old thing. Empty promises that never come to reality.
Well, see, with cults though, like Heaven's Gate, you know, like they believe it did come true though. You know, they did it. They unalived themselves, so they'll never know if it came true or not. So the crazy thing is, they believed so hard in what they were doing that they thought that it was real. We know it's not, obviously. We're not dumb. We're not followers. We have a better IQ than a 10-year-old, you know. But some of these people had to have been mentally ill. And some of these people just had to not been on their medicine that day. I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, with
Levi
them
said,
unaliving
I'm gonna get
themselves.
going, y'all. Good night. Stay safe. Yeah, good night, Levi. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning into tonight's episode. See you on the next one.
But yeah, for them unaliving themselves, it's basically the fact that they saw the easy way out.
Right.
They swore up and down that these Nordics supposedly was supposed to come pick them up via vehicle, right? It never showed
Yeah.
up. So they decided to take the easy way out.
Yeah.
It's come to the point where they were following a guy who had so much mental health issues about him that he talked all this nonsense because he was so far gone, and that everybody either was going along with it, and because they were just as far gone as he was, or they had nothing else left to live for. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I feel that too.
Same here.
All right, we're gonna jump on to the next video now.
In March 1997, after getting an anonymous tip, police entered a mansion in Rancho Santa Fe. There, they discovered 39 victims of mass suicide. There were 21 women and 18 men found lying on beds wearing dark clothes and Nikes, and they had no signs of trauma. They were determined to be members of the Heaven's Gate cult. Their leaders preached that ending their lives would allow them to enter an alien spacecraft hidden behind the Hale-Bopp comet. Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles founded Heaven's Gate in 1974. Marshall survived a near-death experience in 1972, and Bonnie was the nurse who recruited him. Marshall claimed to be Jesus' successor, and Bonnie ended up dying of cancer in 1985. During the early 1990s, Marshall began recruiting new members. He also advocated for sexual abstinence. Several male cult members underwent castration operations. In October 1996, they began renting the home in California they called the Monastery. In part 2, we'll get into the closure of Heaven's Gate.
Like, that whole facial reaction that he's giving right there shows he is out of it. He's not there.
I agree.
Yeah, you think he's gone? You think he's just gone?
Yeah, like, he's completely, like, he's what you would consider a nutcase.
A nutcase, a nut job, a wacko.
Yeah.
Today's story isn't necessarily a mystery, but it is a strange story from the internet that I want to share with you because it's kind of intrigued me. Now, Heaven's Gate was a cult that was in America around the 90s, I'm not that big on cults, I'm just sort of going what I've read offline, but it was kind of a big cult run by somebody called Marshall Applewhite. And to give you the shortest version possible, the cult gained infamy after 1997 when all of the members collectively killed themselves by eating a poisoned applesauce or something, and they all died on the bed and were covered by purple cloth. And the reason that they did this is because they had to pass on to the other side on like an alien spaceship. Like, I'm not kidding. Go and have a look for yourself. And you can go and have a look for yourself because, interestingly enough, the Heaven's Gate official website is still up and running. Like, it's the most 90s thing I've ever seen. Go and have a look for yourself. Just search Heaven's Gate website and it tells you everything, what they stood for, what they did, what they were planning on doing before they did it. Like, who is running this? Why? Usually things like this gets taken down within, like, moments. Like, when somebody dies or somebody gets murdered, their Instagram accounts, TikTok accounts are, like, removed by whoever. But yeah, the fact that this website is, like, still up and running and has everything on it that, who is running this? Who is behind this? But if you are curious, I suggest that you go and have a look yourself.
I spent the entire day on that website today. I found out about it. I took videos of it and posted them to TikTok. I couldn't believe that when I went and checked it to see if that was real, and it is.
Wow.
So nutty.
Okay, we're rolling tape, and the camera is on Jim Odie. Jim Odie, would you want to stand up there, and so that we can take a look at your uniform? Okay. And maybe we can back up a little bit and get a little wider picture of the uniform. Okay. Good. Now come back, and if you would, and sit down, and now if you would hold your patch, maybe we can zoom in on the patch. Great. See, turn it the other way a little bit. The opposite way a little bit. There you go. Now we don't have, there we go. See, it says Heaven's Gate awaiting. And that's exactly what that means to us. We've been away, and now we're going back. Okay, go back to Jim Odie, if you would. Okay, thanks.
Crazy stuff.
We called him Jamodi. That man's name was Jamodi.
Yeah.
That's a weird one.
It is.
I was working on this case as a true believing member of the Mormon Church. This struck me big time when I heard it.
I hope for your sake that you at least ponder this, that you go into the privacy of your closet. Don't ask your neighbors, your friends, what they think of this. You go see if you can connect with the purest, highest source that you might consider God, and say, what about this? Is this for real? Is this for me? If it is, then give me the strength. Because as soon as you tell anyone else, they will be used as the instruments to have you not believe, to have you stay in this world and wait for heaven on earth.
Okay, that's really disturbing, because that's exactly how, as a missionary, Mormon missionary, I taught people to know that what I was saying was true. Mm-hmm. And that's how the church taught me to know what was true.
Right.
Is by praying about it.
None of this stacks up logically. It was all pathos. It was all 100% emotion. And that's what drove Heaven's Gate. And then he said exactly the opposite of what I would say. He said, don't ask people about it. I would say, do ask people about it. We should all be asking questions and looking at both sides of the story.
Man, the
emotional
way
manipulation.
Yeah. And the way he looked, like you've been saying, his eyes just don't blink. And it just, you don't want to look
No, he
at
doesn't.
him. It just,
Yeah, when he gets into that weird,
creepy.
weird mode. Yeah, creepier and creepier every time.
Yeah.
Marshall Apple has something.
One of the saddest stories relating to comet panic comes from the 1997 approach of Hale-Bopp, and this relates to something called the Heaven's Gate cult. In 1973, Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles became convinced that they were destined to prepare the way for the kingdom of heaven. They believed that they were witnesses described in the Book of Revelations. They began distributing leaflets saying that they were two individuals sent from the level above human, and that they were destined to return to that level in the coming months. How were they going to return to that level? Via a spaceship. The level was referred to as Tela, the evolutionary level above human. And in order to elevate to this level, you had to renounce a lot of stuff. Sex, drugs, earthly belongings, family. They actually did end up gathering followers, though, people that wanted to maintain their Christian beliefs but put it into a modern age of science fiction. In 1985, Nettles actually died from cancer, and this kind of threw things for a bit of a loop with Applewhite. He became obsessed with the idea that the body was only a vessel, and that in order to be elevated to Tela, you had to leave your earthly vessel behind. In 1997, as Hale-Bopp approached, Applewhite told his followers that the comet was covering the UFO that was coming to take them all to the next level. And in March, 39 cult members wearing matching tracksuits and trainers, covered in purple shrouds, and wearing armbands that read Heaven's Gate Away Team, took their lives in order to leave their earthly vessels and progress to Tela.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Definitely.
To believe that they were going to progress and become something godly, and knowing that they unalived their own selves. They're not going where they want to go if they're truly Christian, right?
Right.
Because, like, I mean, I don't know about your guys' denominations, but I know Catholics definitely think that unaliving yourself is like one of the most ultimate sins you can do.
Oh yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. I don't know how the Jewish religion looks at unaliving yourself. I don't think they're fond of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
We just sat there and gasped as each one of these members said their goodbyes.
The former Army paratrooper.
I just want to say how thankful I am to Doe and T for helping me and taking me under their wing, and all my classmates have been so great to me and all the problems I've caused.
The youngest member of the group, age 25. The oldest at 71, a mother of 3.
My thoughts in these last hours are only of joy and wonder at the thought of going home.
Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Since I've been in the class, I've learned the answers to all of those.
And couldn't be happier about what we're about to do.
But there's something you should know as these people praise Doe and thank him for showing them the way. On the other side of the camera, Doe, there, listening.
happiest day of my life.
Once you've said something in front of somebody else, you're far less likely to renege on that, right? Do you stand up and say, oh, guess what, I changed my mind and run out of the yard? No, you don't do that.
For T&O to endure what they've endured 22 years, it's just unimaginable they'd go through that for us.
Most of them said things that were mimicking almost word for word what Applewhite had said.
This world has become so corrupt.
So corrupt.
Oh, corrupt.
So corrupt. So it really showed the dependency on him.
As long as I exist, I have free will.
And I am doing this of my own free will.
My own free will.
I say no, they didn't have any free will. There were 38 murders and 1 suicide. If he wanted to kill himself, fine. Go ahead. Marshall Applewhite, you go first. But no, he made sure they all died.
Did they have real choice?
No, they have what I call bounded choice. They live in this bounded reality. They live in a closed world.
Nick Matzorkas took calls from the anguished families. He tried to help.
I recall, like it was yesterday, the quivering voices on the phone and how deeply it hurt them.
Makes me want to cry. Because I think, what a waste. All of those 39 people, what a waste.
This sense of betrayal.
It's devastating to this very day.
I just wish that she could have found something worth living for here.
Thank you.
Everyone who was there is gone.
Thank you.
It ends with the fade to black.
Thank you very much.
It ends also with silence.
So they said that he was the one behind the camera.
Right.
So he coerced them, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
We'll never know if they actually wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Few of them sounded
How
heavy.
crazy is that?
And then who would have placed those purple cloths on them?
Right.
I thought about that. I'm like, how can they do that themselves if they're already covered?
Okay, so I think he did it. Right? He covered them all up first. And then he committed suicide.
Right.
He had to. I mean, it just doesn't seem likely. Yeah, just crazy stuff to think about.
It's definitely a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Your only chance to evacuate is to leave with us.
It's been 25 years since this UFO religious cult shocked the world with its mass suicide.
If they wanted to do that, if they wanted to do what they did to themselves, and it looks like they passed on quietly, peacefully at rest, I'm sure whatever's happened to them, that they're happy.
On March 26, 1997, the bodies of 39 Heaven's Gate members were discovered in a San Diego mansion.
What we are looking at here is in fact 39 suicides. We have nothing that would indicate differently at this time. Most of you have either seen or heard reference to what we would refer to as the goodbye tape. We have that tape.
Planet Earth about to be recycled.
Heaven's Gate's founders, Marshall Applewhite and nurse Bonnie Lou Nettles, combined biblical teachings and science fiction for the basis of their movement.
The T&O, they're just not from this world. They've come here to bring what y'all call Holy Spirit.
The founders variously referred to themselves as Doe and T, the Two, and the UFO Two. And by 1975, Applewhite and Nettles had convinced a group of 20 followers to abandon their lives and families to await an extraterrestrial spacecraft that would take them to the kingdom of heaven. Applewhite also advocated for living without sensual pleasures, and most of the group's male members underwent voluntary castration.
They intrigued me in a way that was like nothing else. Doe was the second coming of Jesus, and I know it's true.
After the 1985 death of Nettles, Applewhite revived the dwindling cult with new recruitment methods. By 1995, members were certain their spacecraft was hiding behind the newly discovered Hale-Bopp comet.
Welcome to Beyond Human, the last call. We want to share it with you.
In late March 1997, as the comet reached its closest distance to Earth, 39 group members drank a lethal mix of phenobarbital and vodka, leaving behind suicide notes and pre-recorded farewell videos. It is the largest mass suicide on U.S. soil to date.
This isn't a troubling circumstance. Don't take it as that. It's just a gateway, just a doorway.
That is so crazy. That gives me the heebie-jeebies.
It does. It just, oh.
This is our last video for the night, guys.
We're going to talk to you about the most urgent thing that is on our mind, and what we suspect is the most urgent thing on the minds of those who will connect with us. We'll title this tape, Planet Earth About to be Recycled. Your only chance to evacuate is to leave with us. Planet Earth about to be recycled. Your only chance to survive is to leave with us. Now, that's a pretty major statement, pretty bold in terms of religion, in terms of anybody's intelligent thinking. To most people who would consider themselves intelligent beings, they'd say, well, that's absurd. What's all this doomsday stuff? What's all this prophetic stuff? You know, intelligent human beings should realize that everything has their cycle. They have their season. They have their beginning. They have their end. They have cycles. We're not saying that planet Earth is coming to an end. We're saying that planet Earth is about to be refurbished, spaded under, and have another chance to serve as a garden for another human civilization. Now, the reason this is such an interesting time is not only because we're on the threshold of the end of this civilization, because it's about to be recycled, but because of where that finds us, where that finds you, where that finds those who would judge us, how we would speak of them and how they would speak of us. Now, you keep saying us. Who do you think you are? Well, I, in all honesty, must acknowledge my father. My father is not a human father. My father is a member of the evolutionary level above human, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. My father gave me, long before this civilization, gave me birth into that kingdom level above human, that kingdom of heaven, that kingdom of God. It's up to you whether you believe that or not. That's not important to me, even though I wish that you could believe it for your sake. For those who do believe it, stand a possibility of a future beyond this recycling time. Now you say, well, according to religious literature, I thought there was someone else that was going to come and be our Savior here at these end days. That was going to be Christ's return. Well, the name Christ might be a little confusing, or the name Jesus, because the name Jesus, of course, was the name given to the body that mind that was indeed from the kingdom of heaven came, and that mind was here 2,000 years ago, and that mind came for the express purpose of teaching humans how they could be saved, how they would not be plowed under at the end of the age. Well, we're at the end of the age. So the one, or the mind that was in Jesus, that mind is in me. You'll have to decide that for yourself. I must admit that I am here again, that I'm here saying exactly the same thing that I said then, trying to say it in today's language, trying to hope that for your sakes you can see what we have to offer you. For our Father offers you life. I'm not talking about human life. If planet is about to be recycled, and we see the planet as a stepping stone, planet Earth a stepping stone, that just as within a civilization evolves upward, that each segment of civilization becomes more civilized, less barbaric in some ways,
It's supposed to, not that it necessarily does. Sometimes it seems to appear to be more civilized when, in fact, it becomes more barbaric, more quick to condemn the rest of the world, quick to kill the rest of the world that does not think as it thinks. I know what I just said. I said that I am the return of the Son of my Father. I'll tell you something that's even more remarkable. My Father came with me this time. He came in the early 70s, took on a human form, an adult human form, helped me get in an adult human form, and we together helped those who came with us that were also here 2,000 years ago get in the bodies that they were wearing so that they could rid themselves of human behavior, human activity, human thinking, so that they could be ready to move into the kingdom of heaven, or the evolutionary level above human.
What a loony.
Very crazy. Oh my
Straight from
goodness,
the
it's
horse's mouth.
creepy.
I was losing brain cells listening to him.
Right? I mean, just, oh, what a nut.
39 people. 39 people loved what he said, apparently. But anyways, guys, that was Heaven's Gate Cult. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode tonight. I know I did. Did you guys enjoy the episode tonight?
Yeah, I did. It was interesting.
What about you, crew?
I mean, not gonna lie, he put me to sleep a couple of times listening to his voice and how he was talking, the way he was looking. I'm like, okay, I'm out for a little bit. Because, like,
Right.
here's my thing on that. Okay, I would not be like that if I literally, like, don't get me wrong, Heaven's Gate, really cool, interesting to learn about. But at the same time, Marshall, his voice was boring.
I mean, I get you, but it's not about the voice. It's about what he did as a cult and what they did as people.
Yeah, yeah, that is true.
It's not
Same
supposed to
time,
be about the man's voice. I think you're making it about too much. You're hating a man for his voice when you should be hating the man because he ran a cult.
well, yeah, obviously, but at the same time, like hearing
But
his
he
voice, like, okay, so let's say, okay, if he was still around,
39 people had no problem with that man's voice. 39 people did whatever that man said.
you got to
That's what's
remember, like I
interesting.
said earlier, they weren't there in here, or they just gave up, right? So that's the only explanation why they followed him. And people do drastic things and go drastic measures on trying to find ways and end it. When a cult leader like him make empty promises.
See, but there go. Then you're thinking like a smart person. You're not thinking like they're thinking. They don't know that all of that was false promise. They're gone. Their bodies, their soul ain't here no more.
Well, at the same time, like you said, he was coercing them. So
Oh
they
yeah,
were
for
listening to
sure,
everything he was
100%.
saying, and they were, in their minds, they saw he was being truthful because
Wait
they.
till you see what Jim Jones did. Wait till you see what Jim Jones did, because Jim Jones, 120 times worse.
Well, I
Oh,
believe
for
it.
sure.
Marshall
Because I watched
Applewhite is crazy, but Jim Jones is crazier.
Yeah, I ended up watching the movie they made about Jim Jones, and that just oh, it was horrible, horrible what he did.
Insanity. But anyways, guys, that's the episode for tonight. I hope everybody had fun. If you did enjoy the stream, like, share, subscribe, send it to your friends. See y'all later. Peace out from the Robert and Crew Show.
If you don't like boring news but still crave the truth, then dive into The Robert and Crew Show. From mind-bending conspiracy theories to wild weather phenomena, we've got it all. Ever wondered what's really happening in your hometown, or what secrets the global news isn't telling you? We dig deep into the core of every story, unraveling the mysteries one podcast at a time. Join Robert and the crew as we navigate this vibrant, ever-changing cyberpunk landscape, bringing you interviews with the most intriguing minds out there. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, a news junkie or a weather enthusiast, there's something here for you. So strap in, listeners, because we're about to take you on a ride through the neon-lit alleys of truth and intrigue. This is the Robert and Crew Show, where the future meets the fantastic.